I've been following you for some time, and I've been seeing all the great work you're doing. And what's very unique about you is that just like me, you're involved in many different projects and businesses. A little bit about me, I'm actually from the hospitality sector as well. So you got my attention, and I just wanted to highlight you today and show you and showcase you to our audience. So Suleman, can you please let's actually start with a very cool question. You are also called Curry King. So let's hear about that.
Thank you so much, Taha, first of all, for having me on your podcast. I'm equally excited to have someone from the hospitality background sharing common thoughts. So, obviously, the first question is pretty interesting. Now, I believe you're based in US. Is that correct?
Yes, well, ethnically I'm Pakistani. I have business in Pakistan as well called Dawat PK. We're from the same industry, but we have a branch here in the US as well.
Brilliant.
We were thinking
So,
about coming to the UK, but we have too much competition with the Curry King.
okay, of course, of course. I'm sure across Europe, USA, Canada, you would come across many entrepreneurs who are accidentally ending up in the hospitality sector. So when they arrive in the countries, they haven't got a lot of skill and everything. So they just think about probably opening up the restaurant, which is entirely, in fact, most difficult, one of the most difficult business to be in. Unlike them, I came to this country and I learned cooking myself how to cook initially and opened up my own restaurant. So that really separates me apart from a lot of those people who do not have the skill to open up a restaurant and understand how the cooking works and everything. And the other strength I had is understanding the core of the business through working in the kitchen, starting from a dishwasher, and then working my way up the ladder to lead as a owner of the restaurant. So I literally understand all aspects of the business. So that's my little background. But then how I became the Curry King, obviously, I've been in the industry for almost 17 years now. And there are lots of awards which over the years I have received for my services to the industry. And one of them was titled as Curry King. Now, this is a very special and a very prestigious award organized by Asian Food and Restaurant Awards every year. So back in 2019, I was awarded the title of Curry King, and I'm hugely thankful to the organization for awarding me this great title because I strongly believe, this title makes a real difference for me.
Lovely. So tell me about your story because you do have a very unique story when it comes to, especially coming from Pakistan as a young man, and making it so big in the United Kingdom. I mean, so many immigrants they struggle with finding their path. So can you walk us through that journey of yours?
Basically, I was only 18 years old when I decided to move to UK. And as you may have come across, many youngsters who are even still in this age are probably looking to leave our country and go to seek out better opportunities. So obviously, back in those days, I was one of them who wanted to make it big, always looking towards bigger opportunities. So back in the year 2000, I decided to leave Pakistan. I was only 18 years old, studying in a local college with no knowledge of any sort of skill. Just decided to make a move. When I arrived in the country, uh, I was just looking for a better career, better opportunities. Didn't know much about anything. I didn't know what to do. Just started looking for a job. Started walking almost 5 to 6 miles every day looking for a job from shop to shop, offices, all sorts of areas. I applied the job. Eventually, I did get a job as a dishwasher in a local restaurant. I was very, very excited. And I just took up the role. I didn't even realize how tough and how difficult this role is going to be. And when I walked into the kitchen the very first day, and when I look at the pots and pans, I was quite lean and tall and very young at that age. I thought, oh my God, this is this real dishwashing? Because I had an imagination that I'll be probably washing some plates and some cutlery and maybe some glasses. I didn't realize there are such a big pots exist. So eventually I started doing it, and on the very first day, I must share a joke here, uh, which I still cherish after so many years, is that when I on my first day at work, I decided to wear a white pair of shoes, which was gifted to me. My friend, my brother gifted it to me when I was leaving from Pakistan, and was so precious to me. And I didn't realize what kind of role dishwasher is, so I decided to wear it when I went to the job. Uh, I worked almost 8 hours on the first day, and when I looked down on my shoes, they were all turned into black and gray. And this is how I still look back and smile at myself, because I would never wear white shoes working as a dishwasher in the restaurant. Obviously, I'll fast forward the story. Once I learned the cooking within the restaurant, I learned how to cook. The head chef very graciously started teaching me how to cook different combination of spices and the marinations, and how to cook the rice, the biryanis, and the karais and the baltis. So that's where I discovered my love for cooking and decided to open up my own restaurant one day. Started dreaming about it with the help of family and friends. In back in 2004, opened up my first restaurant in Tooting. Um, Pretty much had to do everything myself: mopping, dishwashing, cooking, cash and carries, serving the customers as a waiter, working almost 16 hours a day. Working for someone else and doing my own thing was obviously way more difficult than I imagined. But thanks to God, business started doing well. And that's when we got into the event catering and event management side of the business. Later on, we ventured into the hotel and hospitality business. So Alhamdulillah, our business wings are currently into restaurants, catering and events, our own hotels, as well as event management business, which is probably the biggest business stream we currently have. So Alhamdulillah, has been a bit of a journey, but it's still going on.
So, so you come as an immigrant from Pakistan. You come to the UK. You face all these challenges, and you start from a humble background. And what's your message today, especially for Pakistanis, in the South Asian community who are looking for that shortcut? Because there seems to be an urgency of success now, and it seems like you come with a lot of patience. So if you can just expand on that.
So the first answer is there's no shortcut. For me, it never worked. I had to work my way up and still working on. Looking back at the situation in Pakistan, I think what we're lacking at currently is, a lack of direction. Now, um, when I come across a lot of youngsters, even within the UK, from Pakistani background, I see them, they lack motivation, they lack direction. Even some of the students who are coming here to study are not even willing to study. They're more keen to work and find ways how they can climb up the ladder. Now, I go across a lot of places where I talk. I mean, I've done some TEDx talks as well. And one of the key lessons I always give out is no work is too small. Um, when I there's a lot of time there are discussions about the youth in Pakistan and why they're not being able to, play a part in or contribute in some capacity to bring our country forward. And on their independent level or an individual level, they are not able to, do something constructive. Is mainly they're just thinking too big, and you got to look at where you are and what you're up to. So as much as our country there are opportunities which are low paid, we got to look at them from an experience point of view rather than what are we gaining out of it in terms of financial gains. We've got to look at the experience now. So if someone is getting almost 10,000 rupees, which is less than $100. Youngsters are valuing that job based on the salary, not based on experience they're going to gain, because no one would offer you a bigger role unless you don't have an experience. And if someone wants to gain or earn 100,000 rupees, he got to have enough experience on the plate to go for a bigger job. And there are people, trust me, there are people who are making big salaries in Pakistan, but they are the ones who have gained experience or skill or higher education. So if someone like me, who's probably in very early stages of their education in Pakistan, haven't got a lot of knowledge, skill, they will probably just go out and seek knowledge, seek experience, and that's how you build your way up. So there are many ways to do that. And if I could give you one or two examples, like I come across a lot of youth who are just wasting time here, there, left, right. You go around streets in Pakistan, you see people are hanging around, wasting their time, not looking at building their career based on the experience. Trust me, I mean, you go across these universities, colleges, all these big entrepreneurs come with one message. Not necessarily the education help them get up the ladder. It's the experience, it's the ideas, which help them, climb up the ladder. So I think it's a very simple thing. The parents need to motivate their children. Even parents or the society sometimes put them under pressure from taking up the small roles. Oh my God, what if my son is working in a restaurant as a waiter? Or what if my son is working as a security guard or anything? I mean, the lowest paid roles I'm just referring to. So if they can give them that confidence that, nothing is wrong with it, and eventually in 2 3 years time, when you have the experience, you can start climbing up the ladder. So rather than just looking or blaming everything on the government, on resources, there's a lot of responsibility on the parents and the individuals themselves.
So another question, how do you balance the education and work life, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, they talk about school is irrelevant. Some talk about that no, education is important till the final end. Is there a balance? Is there a thin line? How do you take this topic?
Obviously, I have a different perspective to share on this particular thing. I think education does help. There are ways, there are businesses which can be supported through education, through knowledge, and there are businesses which are pretty much school didn't help me, and a lot of skills or education we learn when we bring it into a practical life, it may not help us as much as we expect it to. I strongly think now, looking back at my career, if I could have learned more education, probably seek more degrees, I think it would have helped me big time, because there is a certain level of career or a stage you can get up to without education, but there are always barriers which restricts you from further growth with the lack of education. So the balance has to be there, and I strongly think that people who say that school doesn't help, when you get into a business, there are so many manners which are irrelevant to the business are taught to you from education. So therefore, I strongly believe that education is as equally important as well as the experience or working for someone, or growing your own career without education.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And for example, now if during this scenario, right, we have an influx of Pakistani immigrants leaving the country and they're looking for the new thing, they're looking for the next thing. In such a day and age, um, do you have any like I know you do a lot of charity work and community service work. Can you expand on all the things you're doing, especially in the United Kingdom? And I know you also got, you've got several awards for all the great work that you've done for the community. I know you're humble and you don't talk about it, but if you can just expand on that, that would be lovely.
So obviously, being a Muslim, With our background from Pakistan, I'm sure all of us believe in charity and charitable causes. Supporting them is kind of not just part of our business, but our religion and our, ethos. So, like many others, I'm not anyone special. I just do what we have been taught from our religion. From the day dot, we I had this mindset through initially inspired from my mother, who used to do a lot of charitable works. Even within the limited resources, we were not well off at all, a very poor background. But my mother used to do a lot of charity from whatever resources she had. So these sort of principles were embedded within my personality from the day one. Since the moment we got into the business, we, I mean, we made up our mind that we got to support our local causes, people around us, people in Pakistan, but most importantly, where we live. I mean, I come across a lot of Pakistanis or people who are here from abroad. They prefer to support people back home, which is perfectly all right. But I strongly believe that we are living in this society where, it is our equal right and maybe I call it an obligation to support local people, local communities. See behind the wall, but you can surely see people who are on your left, right, or in front of you. And despite living in the UK, which is called a most developed nation, probably the seventh most developed nation in the world, there are still over 4 million people living under the poverty line. And because of my background in the hospitality, I come across a lot of, food poverty causes, which highlight the need and need for the support of this particular sector and people who are in a need. So there are a lot of homeless people in this country. There are so many people who are living under the poverty line, relying on the food banks. There are so many jobless people who need the support. So I set up a charity a long time ago called Spice Village Uplift. It was mainly created to support the local causes, provide meals, education, a little bit of diversity and inclusion work by empowering, youth into learning experience and helping them find jobs, build their careers, and then obviously supporting local causes, working on the Christmas days, bringing harmony between different faiths, highlighting our positive impact and our role in society as being a Muslim. As you know, across the world, Muslims' perception needs to be improved. So a lot of my charity work was based towards improving the perception and making sure people think positive about us. So thanks to God, last year that Spice Village initiative was awarded by the Queen's Award for the voluntary services, which is the highest any organization can get in the country. And similarly, for my own services, I was rewarded with the Member of British Empire last year by the Queen. And this was, by the way, the last ever awards given by the Queen, because after that, sadly, she passed away. During COVID, I managed to set up a campaign called 1 Million Meals that was initially set up to support the NHS staff, key workers, food banks, and a lot of food poverty, which I mentioned earlier. And that campaign went viral. Thanks to God, a lot of restaurants, food establishments throughout the country supported the campaign. A lot of celebrities came on board, the likes of David Beckham, who's a footballer, supported the campaign, which attracted a lot of mainstream media, Sky, BBC News, ITV, Telegraph. They featured our campaign, and that really helped us. When we managed to, and most importantly, we managed to build up a network of volunteers of almost 200 plus people who were working with us tirelessly throughout this campaign in order to support all those, especially the NHS staff who are working at the front line in order to protect our friends and our families. So This work is obviously continuing, but looking back at all this work, and as you could see in these developed nations, even if there's no job, there are volunteer capacity roles which helps you gain experience, and we still get so many requests, even though there's no more COVID out there. But as people know my background, we still get so many requests for people willing to do some volunteer work just to get some work experience. And this shows the point I was making earlier, how work experience can shape up your path to probably seek bigger opportunities.
Thanks for sharing that. So your major focus right here, your advice to like individuals coming into the country is, if you could summarize this, take up a small job, right? Focus on the experience, be humble, and then expand your horizon in your career, but be humble in how you take a start, right? Um,
100.
one of them. That is perfect. Now, if you can go into like, I mean, I know there's a lot happening with the UK, and everyone keeps talking about the economy from a whole macroeconomical level. When you look at the economies of the world with what's happening in Ukraine, how has that affected business, with the Brexit change, with the Ukraine war? Has that affected business on your end as a business owner, and how have you dealt with that?
So, of course, this is quite a big question, but I'll try and summarize it as much as I can. Obviously, we literally came out of the COVID, 18 months ago, and then this Ukraine crisis started. Already, our economy was struggling because the Brexit happened just before the COVID. So it brought a lot of trouble to the economy. But then COVID and then this Ukraine crisis. So I can only speak on behalf of the hospitality sector, which I'm currently in. So hospitality sector was already hit hard due to the Brexit, because UK does not have a lot of producers. So they were heavily relying on imports from EU countries, and that was helping the hospitality sector because the prices they were attracting from EU countries were as good as even doing it locally. Because if they would have done it locally, they were even more expensive because of the higher labor costs. So all these 50 years they were relying on EU without even building their own production infrastructure. They decided to walk out of EU, meaning in all the taxes and heavy cost coming from the EU, because everything was subsidized being part of the European Union. So that firstly started hitting us, and then afterwards the Ukraine crisis hardly hit our utilities costs because they were heavily relying on gas and electricity from Eastern European countries and mainly Ukraine. So currently, the biggest hit we are getting is from utilities, because everyone in the hospitality sector is literally crying about high, electricity bills, gas bills, water bills. Literally everything has gone up. Now, the other another major factor was that a lot of EU citizens left the country after the Brexit because of the change of laws and restrictions. They all decided to go back into their countries. And now I'm sure recently you must have observed that UK policy of attracting foreign workers, especially from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, has been quite lenient for a few months now, and we've seen a huge influx of families moving from Pakistan, India, and other countries on work permits mostly. But then obviously students are also coming into the country. They're just trying to fill that gap to to ensure that everyone was struggling because of lack of labor for each and every industry. Even hospitality sector was probably the most hard hit sector. And we were always struggling to get the chefs. So recently, the government has made changes to fill that gap. And in terms of youngsters, going back to that point, I will come back to it one more time. But obviously, our current economy, interest rates are going high, inflation is at its peak for as far as it can go back. So economy is in deep trouble right now. Hopefully, in the next 12 to 18 months, we can see or expect some improvements. But at this stage, UK is one of the worst hit country, which is struggling big time. Now, going back to the important point about youngsters and how the UK economy is currently seeking expertise from overseas and especially from India. I think we have a lot of talent in Pakistan. Their outreach is probably not enough, so they need to really make most out of these great opportunities which is currently offered by the UK government in the IT sector, in the artificial intelligence, where our youth can make a big difference. But the problem we have is even the students who are coming here on the student visa are not even going to universities enough. They're not even learning enough. They're here more to settle here permanently than finish their courses properly, finish their degrees properly, and then move on to the next stage. So one of the rule I must share here is that the government has literally overnight made a change that no students can join work permit schemes while they are studying. Now, in the past, over 100,000 students came on a student visa, and within the first 6 months or a year, they joined the organization on work permit, meaning leaving their education. Universities struggled to make their fees out of them, so the government had to take this action overnight without giving any notice to make sure that all students are completing their education and then moving on to seeking opportunities. And this is what I was referring to earlier, and I'm making this point again, that our youth needs to understand there is no shortcut. They need to have that patience. And I know, I mean, I'm sure with your exposure of US and other countries, um, you may not even have come across people who have done some shortcuts. I mean, maybe a handful of people, but other than that, I've only come across people who have done hard work, and I've literally seen all those top people yet being very humble.
So do you think there's a lack of maybe guidance of how we've been brought up, or do you think there's a lack of entrepreneurs they look up to, especially because as if you really look at South Asian communities, we are not the most collaborative when it comes to business back home. So when you go to UK, when you go to these different countries, you see that there is more partnerships, there's more collaborations taking place. The entrepreneurship is different. For example, the way you're giving back by giving your message, you're sharing your knowledge. Do you think that we need more entrepreneurs who help out in guiding them, right? So is this something you agree with? And if so, are there any steps you're taking where you can do more of that?
Yes. So, look, if you look across the world, the countries are known by their businesses and the entrepreneurs they have created. For instance, when you think about Ambani's, you think about India. When you think about Jeff Bezos, you think about America. And this is how these people are making a huge impact there in their countries, of people seeking their footsteps or thinking maybe they could be future Ambani's or future Elon Musk. So, truly, our country's structure is not favorable to businesses and entrepreneurs because they're scared of coming forward, because they know the moment they come forward, they can be caught for some, any reason or whatsoever. So, yes, there is lack of entrepreneurship, and if there is, probably people are not willing to come forward. They are doing exceptional things. I met a guy recently in Dubai who sold his software company. He's a Pakistani origin guy for $370 million to an American firm, and yet his name is nowhere. So these kind of people do exist. I'm sure the guy who owned the Kareem was also from Pakistan. He sold it for how many millions? We know these people are existing in Pakistan. We need to make them role models. We're probably looking at a politician to be a role model, but in reality, I strongly feel the businessman, the entrepreneur are the real role models of the country, because they're the one who shape up not just their own journeys or on their own paths, but they inspire so many people who are looking at their journey, their footsteps, how much struggles they've done. Because currently, the first question you asked me is about the shortcuts, and I keep repeating, I don't know about any shortcuts, and I don't know any people who have done any shortcuts. There's always been a journey behind all the successful people, and the steps people probably need to take is probably, I think generally our youth lacks mentorship. Now, this is something I've always believed. Even in my own career, I've been very fortunate to have some wise people around me who have always guided me in through thick and thin, as well as every time there is something to be learned about. And then obviously you got to have your own hunger to learn things. But then most importantly, if you are surrounded by the right people, I think one key element here for the parents is that, like, parents really help their children upbringing and setting up the targets or expectations in a very early stage of their careers. I mean, even if they're going into education, they're always thinking how they can be the best, or make them proud, and we put them under a lot of pressure. But then some people really don't care, whatever the children are doing, they're not looking at that. They're all busy earning, their living, or somehow securing their meaning of life. And that's where I think probably we're lacking big time, how we could guide this youth. Parents can play a very significant role in their upbringing, setting up their tones and their passage to uh, climb up the ladder. And similarly, the organizations like maybe incubation centers, maybe like in these countries, they have the citizen advice bureaus who help you, look for different opportunities rather than wasting time. There are, as you know, Pakistan is one of the best freelance country which is providing services across the world, which is great. But then we are probably offering our services on as a mediocre service rather than direct service. So if we can have that outreach to offer those services directly to the companies, we can cut the middleman and make the most of it. So there are so many steps we can take
So there
to
are
to
a lot
grow,
of
grow out of
Pakistani
this.
entrepreneurs. Sorry to cut you off. There are a lot of Pakistani entrepreneurs that right now, and this is what I'm fully against. They're teaching courses which are not relevant to the world economy. They're teaching skills that are being replaced by AI, but they're still teaching these courses. I'm not going to name any names. I'm sure you are familiar with who I'm talking about. But what's happening here is that that's actually you have an influx of the lower, of the lower population when it comes to like working class to like middle class. So the lower middle class is heavily following them, and in masses of high population, they're going to these schools to get these courses, and they're going on Fiverr. But what's happening now from a graphical standpoint, these numbers are going down because all of these logos can be made through AI. And we're in such a tough time right now where these kids have no other skill. 50% plus they just know how to maybe use Canva, and Canva is not good enough. So how important is it, like especially now for business owners, especially like you who are innovative and constantly changing and innovating through different ideas, how important is it right now to step up and get this message out? And what are some steps business owners like you could take to change this fiasco happening?
So, I mean, everything you said is spot on. I think generally these are the issues we're encountering in terms of our education system in the country. One of the key things which impressed everyone while Imran Khan was trying to come into power post 2017-16 was that he was going to make some fundamental changes into our education system. But sadly, he couldn't even do it. And I'm sure you know the private sector and the public sector, how their education is working. So I think generally, one point I would like to make about myself. Obviously, one of the key thing we can all do is by creating awareness and have that sort of accessibility for people to reach out to you and seek that help, that mentorship, where someone there is there to guide you always. So I mean, back in the days, I was never a social media guy, and I was always more concentrated on my own business, my own work schedules, because of the hospitality business, one of the toughest ones. So we always hands-on, literally working 14, 15 hours a day. So back in the days, I decided to join social media mainly to create awareness and maybe just to inspire some youth, especially from the Pakistani background, because that's where I am from. And trust me, all of us living in overseas have got so much love for our country, and we really want to see our country progress and our youth to do well. And there are ways which, I mean, I'm part of a couple of incubation centers in Pakistan, where we're always looking out for new talent, new ideas, new opportunities, how we could support them. And these incubation centers, we just let new youth come out to us and pitch their ideas, and we see if there are investable models, how we can possibly support them, and if the ideas are at a very early stage, we can help them shape up. So this is one of the ways I think our people like myself who are in the business established overseas or within the country can probably possibly support the oncoming youth. The other steps are probably offering work experiences where I mean, obviously in the UK we do offer a lot of youth work experiences, and trust me, I always prefer and support people from Pakistani origin in whatever capacity I can, to support them and just have them spend a couple of weeks or a month during summer holidays to give them a flavor of how the business operate, and what it takes to be right up in the game. The other steps, I think, generally, like I said, we business people, entrepreneurs, all of us have a larger responsibility supporting them. I'm always I get a lot of messages on my social media where people are sending messages about different ideas, probably investing into them or seeking some guidance. But a lot of them, trust me, still send messages about how can we get to the UK, and that's something I smile about, because obviously I don't really have any resources to bring people to this country, and I always feel how unfortunate it is for us to have our such a beautiful country we have, full of resources. Look at the market size of our country, and sadly the government and the politics, and it's not favorable to the businesses and offering enough opportunities to these youth where they're always lacking.
So, last few questions before we wrap up, and maybe we can go on our Instagram live, because I keep getting messages of you on that side. So, you do so much. How do you maintain a healthy work life? How do you like maintain a healthy work life balance? That's something that like everyone keeps asking me this. Like, as an entrepreneur, do you have some steps? Do you have some guidance? Do you have a schedule? What's your
So, so being in the hospitality sector is always very, very difficult to create a balance. As I said earlier, it's a pretty hands-on business. And food business, whoever is in the food business would probably second my statement. Now, in terms of keeping the balance, obviously, I have a family as well, a very young family. I've got children. I've got other family members to take care of. So recently, I've made a lot of changes to my routine in terms of creating a work balance, doing work from home as well sometimes, as well as play some sports. So as you know, all of us Pakistanis are into cricket. So I love playing cricket. Almost every week we go out and play. Similarly, going to the gym, um, playing squash. I love to play that. So to in order to keep myself healthy, I think more than physically, I think it's more in emotionally as well as mindset. I think you need to have that break from work. And every time I come back from those breaks, it helps me, step up the game further. And I can clearly tell the difference when I was not doing it. I was so much into the business, I could hardly think about how I could plan, maybe a next week, maybe a next month, or a next year. But if you would have met me a few years ago, I was only concentrating on probably the next week. But now Suleiman is a different guy after creating that balance in life, spending enough time with the family, having those holidays, having that fun part in life, having that sports in my life. I think has helped me greatly in terms of how I strategize my business and how I support other people's around me, and how I give advice to youth. Because one of the blessings of this industry is that you are hugely recognizable, accessible, and similarly your access to and your network, being in the hospitality industry, is huge. So my access to a lot of celebrities, a lot of entrepreneurs, literally in within the industry is massive. So that really helped me as well. And a part of my routine is socializing as well, because we are in the events industry. So most evenings I'm attending dinners and events, and those networkings ultimately help me grow my business too.
Some final closing words. What empowers you? What's your why? Um, if a question just came in, so if you can go through that, what makes you wake up every day? What's your mission?
So, like any other entrepreneur, I have quite a few ambitions. There's not one which I could mention. I'll quickly try and mention few. One of the biggest ambition, being in the hospitality industry, I have, and I have always been in my mind, and I've done a lot of work on that, is that claiming the recognition of Pakistani cuisine. Living in the UK, Europe, America, I've traveled across so many countries. Pakistani cuisine does not have its own identity, unfortunately, even despite so many years in the business. And so many Pakistani restaurateurs across the world running these restaurants under Indian identity. Look, I'm not against Indian food or Indian identity whatsoever. However, being an independent country, we got to have our own identity. So I'm a flag bearer of Pakistani cuisine, and wherever I go, I very proudly introduce myself as a Pakistani restaurateur, as someone who is not just projecting Pakistani food, but Pakistan as well. And people know countries, and that's how you build the perception of your country. There are so many avenues where we need to build a good perception about our country, and one of them is food. So look at the Indian food. Wherever you go, any part of the world, you'll find it, mainly because they're all under the same identity. But Pakistani food, unfortunately, no. So this is one of my main ambition. What wakes me up is obviously, like every time I look back where I started from, wherever I am now, this is where I have a bigger responsibility now. When you start your career, you have nothing to lose, and you always work hard. You're willing to break the walls, break the ceiling. Whatever you need to do, you will do it. But once you get at a stage where you are responsible about so many things, generally it brings a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. So what makes me up is that responsibility which I have on my shoulders, not just my own business, my family, people who look up to me. I know there are so many people, fan base, who look up to me, and I have to be making sure that I try and come over the expectation and make sure that I continue to inspire as well as grow my own career. I'm a very career motivated, I'm very ambitious person. I'm never money driven. I've never thought about, okay, how I could be a millionaire or a most wealthiest person. I think what I have always believed into a value creation. I've done some remarkable things in the past where I have done a lot of innovative things. My mindset operates like that. going forward, if I want to be known as, I want to be known as someone who changed the perception about food industry, did some innovative things in the past, and I will continue doing those. These are my ambitions. And then obviously, if I could do something for the youth of our country, even people locally here, within my humble capacity, I've been doing it. Uh, I don't hardly get a chance to speak about it, or whatever reason, whether it's the humility, whether it's my religion, doesn't allow me to speak about it. But Alhamdulillah, I keep doing it, and I aim to continue doing it.
Thank you, Suleiman. I really appreciate it. I truly am. I was impressed already by by all the work you're doing online, and I haven't met you before, but I can tell you have an amazing brain on your shoulder, and you are the real deal. And we in Pakistan definitely need more entrepreneurs like you. And I think you hit the nail with the only way to represent a country is by having strong business owners who rule by principle, who live their life by principle, and who do well. And your humility is remarkable for sure, because I know you don't talk about it, but I'm so happy that you were able to share some thoughts. Is there any way an audience can follow you, or what's the best way for them to get in touch with you? Are you available on Twitter? If you could give that information real quick.
Of course. So I've got my own social media manager who keeps reminding me that I have to share some content. I hardly get a chance to do that, but I'm very much accessible, literally on every single platform on social media, from Instagram to Twitter to Facebook to the new threads now. My ID across all mediums is I am Suleman Raza. So please do follow me. Please do reach out, send me DMs. I try to respond to most of them, and anyone looking to seek some advice on how they can end up in the hospitality industry. Look, one thing for the youth is that, I'm sure I'm not the only one. There are so many examples which you could look up to. I'm only one of them. That if I could start a dishwasher and end up here, you can do it too.